If you could see what I see, you would be blinded by the colors. It's true. A rainbow is hanging over my head. It's not a cloud. It's not a burden. It's not a struggle. It's not a problem. And it's not a sin. It's a rainbow. It's a prismatic vision of the colors contained within the beams of light that we see all the time, except that sometimes, if you're lucky, the light slows down and bends, refracts, and then reflects until all of the colors suddenly become visible. It's not a cloud. It's not a burden. It's not a struggle, and it's not a problem. And it's definitely not a sin. It's a momentary slowing and turning and expanding that takes what most people consider the fullness of their human experience and explodes it into something dazzling and arresting. Right? For me, being queer is taking the accepted status quo and revealing all of the possibilities that are hidden to most people. And this is not only possibilities in human sexuality, but possibilities in love and relationship structure and family structure and gender expression and all of the many ways that we construct ourselves in relationship to others. Queerness is not some cloud hanging over my head. It's definitely not a burden. It's not a struggle. It's not a problem. And it's not a sin. In fact, the only problem comes when my queerness has to interface with the rest of the world, which means that that's the problem. When I was a minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Cheyenne, there was an incident with some homophobic and racist flyers at a junior high in the city there. And the response from the school administration was, sort of in that like old school melodrama style where there's like a villain with a top hat and a cape who twirls his mustache, right? And does something so cartoonishly villainy that you can't even take it seriously. Then you will perhaps not be surprised to learn that the principal of that school briefly banned all rainbows from the school. Yes. He was not the principal of that school for too much longer. I will note. Which, right, I'm sure that the central office was frustrated when the local newspaper gleefully declared in the headline, like, local school bans rainbows. And the mustache twirled. You can just see the sign held up for the audience that says, like, boo, whenever he walked on the stage of the story. But part of why he banned rainbows, though I'm sure if he were here he would not describe it that way, was that in the aftermath of this flyers and the dust-up and the various gaffes, I would perhaps say, and how it was handled afterwards, the school reminded everyone that Confederate flags were not allowed. A few of you who, wow, yeah, wowzer, right? And so then the natural follow-up was that rainbow flags, rainbow paraphernalia, rainbows on your shirt, all that was also not allowed. And it's easy to think of this mustache-twirling junior high principal as some sort of evil, hateful bigot, which he may well have been. We were not personal friends, so I could not say. But what I see in his actions and in the struggle around what to do was not a desire to be hateful with the students in the school, but instead a desire for control, for simplicity. Right? Not a desire that to be hateful towards LGBTQ students or staff or faculty, but a desire to control what was happening. Because suddenly, something he did not understand, something wild and out of control, was happening in his school. And the simplest thing he could think of was to just ban rainbows. And that is, right, that's the cartoon villain version of that control response. But there is a much less cartoonish villain version of that happening in, right, county boards, library boards, state legislatures, and US Congress all the time, right? A version that feels much less silly and a lot more dangerous. But it has the same root, which is not some sort of necessarily hateful framing, though there are certainly hateful people who are proposing them, but a desire to control the bodies, the sexuality, and the lives of queer people. Which is why here at the Fellowship, I have connected our reproductive justice advocacy ministries and our LGBTQ advocacy ministries, because at the root of both of them is this sense that somehow the government should get to control your body if you are anything other than a white cisgendered man. Right. And that you can control the information that children in school have access to, that you can control who can seek what kind of medical care, that you can control who can parent and marry. I feel like the access to information control is the one that makes me laugh the most, because sometimes I just want to send like a one-line email to certain legislators that just says, "Are you aware that the internet exists?" But in some ways I don't want to, because I'm worried that then they'll try to like ban that too or something. I don't like maybe if we just don't tell them. Right? And so you can say that you've banned the rainbow, that you've banned access to medical care, that you've banned all sorts of things, but all you've really done is tell me that you have taken white light, sunshine, and you have assumed that that's all that exists. You see one beam of light and you think that's the way it is, that's the only way it could be. All you've done is tell me that you seriously lack imagination and a knowledge of the electromagnetic spectrum. Queerness is a prism. In my life and in the lives of many, it is something that takes what everyone else sees, what everyone else is able to perceive, and shifts it. Changes it. And where you see one thing, I see 7 things, 100 things. Where you see one way of being in relationship, I see 50, maybe more. Where you see 2 sets of pronouns, I see 7. Where you see 2 genders, I see an infinite spectrum. And that is not a burden, or a struggle, or a problem. But I will say that ultimately, for me, the most powerful dimensions of queerness are the ones that, even with the benefit of a prism, my straight friends struggle to perceive. Sometimes when you get into a queer space, right, Willow described it as that feeling of you get to sort of take off this itchy, heavy coat that you wear all the time, so much you don't even think about it. And that in those spaces, suddenly, we have this extrasensory perception for the ultraviolet and infrared dimensions of light. That there are ways of being, ways of connecting, ways of existing and moving in the world, expressions of sex and gender that somehow we have a way to recognize in each other. And this is what makes queerness so delightful. And that for those who would ban the rainbow, it also makes it inscrutable and frightening to them because it's out of their control. And it's true that more and more young people today are identifying as some kind of queer, genderqueer, gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, though they dispense with labels. They have found pronouns and labels and relationship structures and ways of being in the world that make me look like a dinosaur. For real. I'm just like an old lady lesbian with 2 kids and a cat and a Subaru. Like, boring. I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful that there are people who can say, I know you can't see this ultraviolet way of being, but I can. And I want to tell you about it. And so this Pride Month, I invite you to consider, where are the prisms in your life? Where are the people, the places, the communities, the relationships that take a beam of sunlight, which was briefly here, I saw it on the floor for like a minute, right? Those places in your life, those people in your life, those relationships in your life that let you slow things down, bend it, refract it, and then reflect it back in a way that lets you see where you once only saw a beam of sunlight, suddenly you see all the colors that are possible. Because that is the invitation I want to make for you for Pride Month, whether you are queer or not, whether you're not sure if you're queer or not, whether you are a member of the LGBTQIA Two-Spirit Plus community who hates that I use the word queer. You too are in our circle of care. Right, where are those prisms? What is slowing things down and bending it and shaping it in a way that helps you expand your sense of what's possible? Helps you be astonished by the beauty of it all and let go of your need to understand it. Let go of your need to make it officially make sense to you, and instead be astonished by its beauty. And maybe you will see a rainbow today. It does seem like the conditions might be ripe. May this Pride be a time of noticing, of bending, of changing, of possibilities. May you see the rainbows hanging all around you. May it be so.